What we do here is go back.
Hey everybody, what's up? It's another episode of the Oldy Gaming Podcast. I, as always, am Oldy Gaming. Unfortunately, with us this week is only Cano Crisco. Not unfortunately that it's Cano Crisco, but we are missing Sharky and the Funky Bunch. He was out of town and he couldn't make it. We tried multiple times to wait for him, but you know, he just doesn't love us that much.
It's too cool for us now. It's all it is.
I guess. You may have noticed that we've been a little radio silent here, and we're doing it on a different day of the week. We're on a Thursday, and as most of you know, I'm sure, it's been E3, and that's why we were going to do one on Sunday and cover half of E3, but then it wasn't really half of E3. It was like basically three. We would have been covering 3 different conferences, and then the back end would have been like 6 or 7 or something like that. So we just decided to wait until now when E3 is technically over, which I think it's still going on, but they're doing like expos, which nothing new is going to come out during the expos. Whereas,
yeah, I think it's just giving players a chance to kind of like get their last hands on the game before they pack it all up and head home.
Yeah. Whereas what we're going to be covering is the conferences of everyone that was there. Yeah. So yeah, let's get right into it. We're going to try and stay true to the order of how E3 was, in the conference order. And it started off with EA Play, which technically wasn't part of E3, but it was at the same place and on the same stage as everything else. And it's basically E3, but they wanted to do their own thing and call it their own name, called EA Play. And they had some pretty cool stuff. And before we get into what they actually did, we're going to go through like a format of games that we want to talk about. We're going to sit here and talk about, where other games that we didn't really seem that interested in, we're going to go over briefly what they are. I wrote some notes down for different stuff. And if we were to go through all of the game, every single game by game, and, you know, have conversation about all of them, this would be like a 3-hour long podcast. So to maybe keep it down to maybe like 2 hours instead of 3, because I have 6 pages of notes from E3, and I'm sure that could go for a pretty long time. But yeah, that's how we're gonna do it. And we're gonna start with EA Play. We're gonna start talking about the heavyweight of the entire thing, Battlefront 2, because I'm just so excited about this game and I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, I guess right off the bat, I know the one thing EA is like notoriously good at, maybe over some other developers, is I feel like they're kind of notoriously good for like actually listening to the fans. Um, a lot of companies will like say that they've changed up things in the game, and then you kind of get into it and you realize it's more or less the same thing. EA is like consistently running forums and stuff and really taking their time on games most of the time. And aside from their sports games, of course, those have to be kind of annual, but they're kind of their bigger games. They definitely take a little bit of extra time and care, and I think they do a good job of listening to the community. But Battlefront 2, I mean, it was, you want to talk about a good showing of what that game is and what they've done different. I mean, it was obviously the highlight, but it was awesome.
So when this isn't necessarily the order that they came out with the games. It's more just kind of a random order for this because I want to talk about Battlefront 2 first. But basically, during all of EA Play, the games that they have gameplay for, they brought in, they hired a bunch of big name streamers, big name as in big in EA games. Like the streamers play EA games and they're well known in the EA community, and they kind of pit them together. So for Battlefront and Battlefield, they did that for these two games. They took Team Darkness versus Team Stone Mountain 64 or whatever that guy is from Facebook, and they pitted them against each other. And Battlefront, like I said, was one of the ones that they did. So not only did they just come out with like a trailer or a gameplay overview, they also showed you actual gameplay of people sitting on a LAN playing against each other. And I gotta tell you, Darth Maul is dumb OP. He was so good. I forget who, I think Darkness 429 is one of my favorite streamers of all time. I believe he was Darth Maul for a very long time, and he carried his team so hard against the clone troopers, and it was scary. Like the for the map, they were on Naboo, a Naboo map, and it was a clone army led by Darth Maul against, or not a clone army, a droid army led by Darth Maul sieging against the Republican army led by Rey for whatever reason. I don't think it obviously it wasn't true to the story of the actual cinematic universe of Star Wars, because Darth Maul would never face Rey. But it was more of like a showcase of who's relevant right now, and everybody loved that Darth Maul was going to be in it. So, and everybody loves Rey. But
Right,
every time those two faced off, it was like Rey was dead as soon as the encounter was on, because Darth Maul was just like so mobile. His moves were just
yeah,
ridiculous.
he could get from point A to point B very quickly. He had that like spinning dash
Yeah,
that was used pretty frequently, and I mean
very
he was
low
moving to
cooldown.
the
Yeah.
point where, I mean, even on the stream he was almost kind of like hard to follow just watching his own character, let alone if you're someone trying to attack him.
Yeah. And they went back to basically, well, actually I don't know, because in the first Battlefront they made it so pretty much lightsaber wielders one shot the normal clones, but he was one shotting everything. He had a choke move that one shotted clones. When if you
Yeah,
got in front of
they
that
didn't go
dash and you
into
got hit by that dash, you were one shot, and it took like two swings of the lightsaber to kill almost anyone.
yeah, that was one thing I was surprised they didn't do a little bit more of, especially just given how massive the demo was that they didn't necessarily go into like too in depth into like a lot of like the more like nuanced gameplay mechanics. So, like, would be something like that, like how strong is the hero versus like your average player character. um but I also wonder too, especially in something like that where there is so many people, because I think they had like a pretty big game as far as like active characters or like active players on on each roster. um I also wonder, like, with that, like, what is the skill level of, like, maybe him versus everyone else playing, right? Like, if he's much more of that, like, that type of game player, like, he's going to be a lot better than everyone else. But I don't think that should take away from the fact that the heroes are clearly, obviously, like, the go-to characters.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, some different stuff is there are classes now. There are like they kind of took a Battlefield 1 look to it, to where you can pick like a scout and or an assault or I don't know if was it I don't think they had a healing one. I don't think they had a healing one, but it was different classes that you could change to, and those classes had different weapons, and that's more of like an original Battlefront, especially the original Battlefront
Yeah,
2. I didn't
that goes
really
way
play the
back.
first Battlefront as much, but in the first Battlefront 2 there were classes that you could choose from, whereas the new school Battlefront there were not. It was any sort of customization thing. Any guy could wear any gun, have any perk, have any, grenade or whatever. That was the first one, but now they're going to change it back to the original class type thing. And they also added in like a heavier class where it's a slower moving, does a lot of damage, has like a shield. But obviously, like the trade-off is, like I said, it's a slower moving is another one.
Yeah, I know for the droids, I can never remember the name of them, but they're like the super droids where they're like kind of funny looking almost, where they're like very like top heavy
Yeah.
and they're gray. That was the one for the droids, and I know the stormtrooper had the jetpack trooper or
Yeah, that
whatever, like
too.
whatever their official title was for it.
I think it was an
Um,
assault class. Or
yeah, but
yeah.
I mean, no, I think he was one of the more heavy ones because he was doing quite a bit of damage and seemed to like whoever was playing as him seemed to be able to stay alive for a pretty long time. But I don't know, that was a while ago.
Yeah, so that's Battlefront 2, and they didn't really show anything about the story. They just I don't even really think they talked about it.
No,
It's
they did have the
basically
chick from the
yeah,
story, like
they
that main dude. She was so aggressive when she came out.
she was very
So
aggressive.
aggressive.
And that's I mean, most of us are not very good public speakers. Most of us, as talking about gamers, are not very good public speakers. And you're definitely going to get that at these type of events, because if you have someone that's never done it before and they get in front of that huge crowd and they get really nervous and it's just super awkward.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not that it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just I think because in the story she's supposed to be on the Empire side. I think she was kind of trying to give that more like hardcore demeanor when she stepped on the stage. But like, I just wasn't expecting it, and I don't know. It seemed like quite a bit right at first, but yeah, I think they more or less omitted story details, except for the saying that it was like kind of between what was it, the Force Awakens um and Episode 6.
Yes. It's like right before. No, The Force Awakens is episode 7. So it's like right. You get to actually do the. Oh man, what was that?
Yeah, but it
What is that one?
bridged the gap between Episode 6 and Episode 7.
Well, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I thought that's what she said.
I mean, it's like a 20-year gap, though, so I don't know if it's going to be that entire. I guess it could
Oh,
be.
yeah. I mean, it may not span the whole thing, but they said it's supposed to maybe like fill in a little bit
Yeah,
of detail as
it's
far
a
as like
fill-in
how
between
the
those.
new Empire came around and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like it should kind of point in that direction.
Battle of Endor is what I'm trying to think of. You actually get to play in the Battle of Endor, right? That's what that planet's called. I think so. No, Endor's the end planet from the moon from episode 6, isn't it?
You are far eclipsing my knowledge at this point.
What the Jakku? The Battle of Jakku. Gosh, what? All right, yeah. So you get to play in the Battle of Jakku, not Endor. Endor is the moon that the Death Star shield was on. Jakku is the place where the starships were fighting, and that's like the battle and everything like that before episode 7 starts.
One thing I really did like about the demo is when it came to the gameplay is they really wanted to like highlight what was like so different between this one and the last one. Aside from like the glaring differences, it's going back to more that like third person's roots, which I thought was really cool. Going more back to like Battlefield 2, like the original Battlefield 2. But they really highlighted
Front.
the ship
Battlefront.
combat. Or yeah, is that what I said, or did I say Battlefield?
You said Battlefield.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, the original Battlefront 2, how it was all like third person, you could zoom in if you wanted to. They're kind of going more back to those roots, which I like. But I really like that they highlighted, even in kind of the smaller, maybe more controlled areas, was like ship combat, and like fighter combat. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, they're bringing that back too, because I don't think. Did they say they're going to actually do space battles? I think they're going to do space battles at one point.
Yeah.
And that was one thing they got rid of in this new Battlefront 1 2015 or whenever it came out.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, I think they mentioned it, but even in this like smaller map, they had they had the one ship. It was doing like essentially what they called like bombing runs, where it was flying in, like attacking a droid tank, but then it would literally like fly underneath of a building basically, and then like peel back out into the space and like turn around, and like so it's kind of doing like bombing runs. So it seems like there's going to be a lot going on in every game.
Oh
which
yeah,
I kinda
because that's like Battlefield as well, because they have that, and in the new Battlefront 1 they have that still. There's still ships flying around and stuff.
Yeah, it seems like it's going to be more accessible to like it's going to be accessible to more characters. It was my like my take on it.
I didn't get. Sure. So yeah, that was Battlefront 2, and now we're gonna talk about a game that is brand new to this, never been seen before, never been heard about, called the Anthem. And basically what my take from it, and I know we were watching this together, so we were talking about it, it's basically a combination of Destiny and Mass Effect, I'm thinking, is what this is going to be.
Yeah, and it sounds weird. If you haven't seen the E3 gameplay, I would go check it out.
For sure.
It looks incredible, and it sounds like a weird combination, but like truthfully, I mean obviously like hindsight, it kind of gives some insight in my opinion. Like if you look at Mass Effect Andromeda and like maybe kind of some of the shortcomings on Andromeda, because there were certainly them, a game like this, even seeing it at E3, kind of shed some light on like maybe why they didn't put as much development into like that BioWare game as they could have, because it clearly wasn't their main focus. I mean, this game looked absolutely amazing.
Yeah, so basically what this is, they showed you the first mission of it, and it was a gameplay mission, and there are classes. First of all, there are four different classes, which is one more than Destiny, but there are 4 different classes, and the classes seemed kind of similar, where you had your Titan, your Warlock, not so much a Hunter.
It kind of like an all-purpose class.
Yeah, but
like,
but it
less
was
specialized.
Yeah, you had like a I think there was a healer too in there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
what the people are, I forget what they called them, but they're
called freelancers.
Okay, they're called freelancers, and they
Very
have these mech suits where they go outside of the safe haven of the city that is the only safe place left on this planet, and they have to go out, and they are saving some dude from trying to do some run. He like was trying to smuggle something out or move some type of cargo somewhere, and the guy that hired the people that are like getting attacked or whatever, didn't hire freelancers. He just hired
like
regular people.
Yeah, he hired like the cheapest people basically,
Yeah.
as opposed to the people that could know like for sure to get the job done.
So when they were playing, they went out of this place, and it was originally just 2 of them, and you first see animals, like wildlife, that are in there and that are dangerous and everything like that, and it's like this big bear that attacks a bunch of other little ones, and they're like, we'll face this later. So they kept moving on, And then there was also I don't remember what they were called, but it was like sentient enemies.
Yeah, they're just like like another like humanoid race,
Yeah.
like some sort of like intelligent race.
And as soon as they saw him, they started shooting at him. So obviously, like, these people are the reason why the planet's not safe anymore for anyone other than the freelancers. And eventually, they get to almost the end of the mission, and they're like, okay, we need to bring in more people. And two more people come in, and that's where it was like the warlock and the tank person that came
Yeah,
in.
you kind of get to see like a full like class setup reveal. Um, yeah, and I know I was doing a little more reading into it. That storm at the end is they're going to be kind of like the dynamic events from Destiny, where like they're going to kind of happen randomly, but they're going to open up the chance for you to like have these like epic like battle moments and really get some like some really awesome loot at the end of them. Because
Yep.
let's be honest, that's what we're all in it for
Yep.
at the end of the day.
Everyone's greedy. They want that loot, man. So yeah, that's how that's gonna work. And that's about all that they showed. I mean, it was like a 10-minute video or so, but it was really cool, and I'm
Yeah.
really excited for it.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed when I thought it was kind of, it was like a small touch, and it's obviously, I don't think, and it may be like that in game. It may be like the demo in game, which I think would be really cool, but you could tell they had, it was obviously more like scripted and like
Right.
less open world because it was the demo, but they had the computer characters, like they weren't actual, aside from the person playing the demo, they weren't live characters. But they had the AI have these little like dialogue moments where like, you know, like they killed an enemy and it dropped a piece of loot, and like the main character that you were was like, like give me something good, give me something good, give me something good, and
Yeah.
then they like picked up the loot, and then she got an assault rifle, and like her character reacted like being pumped that she just got a new assault rifle, and so all of the AI characters kind of had these cool like dialogues where it wasn't like a Ghost Recon dialogue where they're like talking about the amount of enemies in the field, which they did, but they were making like jabs at each other, like, like, hey, like we can do this later with so and so because he could really use the loot. So I don't know if that'll carry over into the main game.
I hope so,
Um,
because I really liked that part of it.
yeah, I thought it was a nice little touch. It was kind of a unique dialogue setup than most games, and I think as long as they have a good, the only thing I could see there is they need to have a wide variety of dialogue where like the characters have a lot of different things that they can say,
That or
so
an
that it doesn't
option
come
to
too.
turn it off.
Also that, yeah. But yeah, I thought it was a cool touch because it kind of gave you, especially for the players that maybe are going to focus a little bit more on playing solo. Um, I'm certain there's probably going to be story missions where you play with like other AI characters. It kind of gives that cool like co-op-y feel without really forcing you to play with other people.
Right. And before we move on from this game, the reason we're comparing it to Mass Effect is because the move sets were
The
almost
opening
like
scene.
identical. Like, if you were ever played a Vanguard in Mass Effect, one of the guy's moves is to, like, you're here, an enemy's over here, you teleport to him and you slam him. And it was literally the exact same move that one of the guys did. And that's why we're comparing it to Mass Effect, because
Yeah.
the move sets were very similar to that game.
Also, they like also like right off the bat, the opening scene, like so they get through a little bit of like the story dialogue and the opening scene, which my favorite part and what I'm so excited for is the character literally jumps off of a balcony essentially and they
Hmm.
start flying, but instead of just like jumping, they do like this kind of like jump, like a jump jet animation before they start flying, and all I'm sitting there thinking is like, oh, like, well, there's the jetpack from Mass Effect, like,
Yep.
all right, cool. But I mean, but that was a highlight from that game, so I'm not even mad about it. It's just I thought that was a cool. It's just a cool concept, but it looks like you can pretty much fly open world
Yep.
in the game, which I'm really excited for. I don't think there's been a game like that since for like a Spider-Man game, which we'll get to that later. But like as far as like that sort of like open world travel ability.
Yeah, so that's going to be like your Ghost in Destiny, probably. I would have to say, is just flying around.
Yeah,
Or not
yeah,
your
or
not
the
your
Sparrow.
Ghost, the Sparrow. I don't know why I always call it the
Yeah,
Ghost. The Sparrow.
yeah, and I know I'm interested as time goes because it's not going to come out until next year. I'm hoping they do kind of like a Mass Effect thing where they release it in like March of next year, as opposed to waiting till holiday season next
Yeah,
year because that's a really long time from now,
it
and I'm
is.
really excited about it. Um, but they had mentioned a little bit about kind of the game itself, and what they said was you're going to be able to, even on like a per class basis, upgrade your suits like per class, which I'm assuming you can kind of swap classes as you see fit. Is my guess. I don't think you're going to be constrained to one class. It didn't seem like. Um, but you can kind of modify your exosuits as you see fit and like kind of add different options for them. So I'm assuming they'll have like speed upgrades for your jetpack, like obviously armor abilities. They had a couple of really cool weapon showcases with that mortar and then the multi-enemy rockets.
Mhm.
I'm sure they have like an official name for it, but I thought those were really cool. They're focusing more, or like I guess focusing less on like, or at least in that demo, like super like futuristic type technology, more just like way upgraded versions of things that we would kind of have available to us in
I don't
this
know
day
if
and
it's
age.
gonna be like you can be whatever class you want to be, like one character, because it seemed like those people that they were playing are going to be the people that you have to be. I don't. It didn't really seem like they were going to have
Yeah.
customization for what your character looks like. That's one thing that it seemed like it was gonna lack.
Yeah, and again, that could just be a closed demo feature that they don't want to give away the generic character, or like they don't want to stray away from the generic characters, which I'm sure they'll cover that in more detail as time goes on. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm hoping you can kind of switch between classes as you play, especially in a game like that. Like it's fun to play as like a tank when you're in a group if you want to be more of like the tanky character. But in a game like that where it's going to be very open world and like kind of fast paced, it seems like it's probably less fun to do that by yourself. So I'm hoping you can kind of switch in between, like in and out of classes, especially if they do have some sort of like healing warlock or something. Um, those, I guess the classes are usually just less fun to play when you play solo.
Yeah, and I could see that working because obviously it's almost like a what is that game? The Division kind of thing where you can switch to it, but if your gear's not set to that class, like you'd have to get specific gear to make yourself better in that specific class. I could see it being like that.
Yeah, and I guess like another thing too, to me, what was the most intriguing part is that you started off like they started off the demo in like a first person cutscene. Um, so what I think would be really cool is, and social spaces seem to be the big thing now. Obviously, Destiny had them. Call of Duty's going to have it. Um, this game, I would say, is more than likely going to have a social space. Um, from the looks of it, at least at the beginning. But what I'm hoping is in that opening scene where the guy tells you why he needs you to go out and save those people, and the character goes and walks by all the exosuits and like gets in the one. I'm hoping you can kind of like have your own little hub where maybe you've got one for each class.
Yeah.
They're all kind of just sitting there waiting for you to take them out. And let's say I'm going to play a tank if I'm pairing with you, so you can play a healing warlock, right? Well, when I play solo, maybe I want to be the more all around character, so I would fly my suit back, like take that one in, and then switch back out, and then we'd like meet up somewhere.
Yeah, that could
Um,
make sense too because they could even go as far as different missions. It would be more beneficial to use this set over this set and stuff like,
yeah,
especially if you're playing like solo
yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, obviously, the details are slim. They still didn't really talk about the story much. All they told you about was who the freelancers are,
Yeah.
um, and that you're living in some sort of like rundown, like dystopian type world.
Yeah, and you don't
That's
even know, you
pretty
don't
much
even
it.
find out what like the main villain of the world is. You just know you're going to
No,
pick up these
yeah,
dudes.
yeah. I mean, yeah, there wasn't really any like major takeaways from it except for the fact that the game looks fucking sick.
Yeah. All right, so that's enough for Anthem. The next one is going to be Need for Speed Payback. I'm not going to talk too much about this one because I'm not much of a Need for Speed guy, but Cano Crisco is.
This is my fucking jam. Yeah. So this game was one. I didn't know up until a little while ago that they were even planning on releasing a Need for Speed game this year. Um, they released one a couple years ago. It was good. It was a good reintroduction to the series. They kind of went back to their underground like 1 and 2 roots with like the car customization and stuff like that. Which, let's be honest, if you played those games growing up, that's more what I've always wanted out of a car game is being able to just make these kind of absurd looking cars and go out and just like tear up the streets with them. But there were a lot of things that that game was lacking. It drove funny. Like the cops were there, but they weren't really an existent force in the game. You just kind of like drove past them and you were fine. And the story was very weak. So this game looks really cool. They're trying to focus as much on the driving as they are on kind of creating like unique driving missions. So like very similar to like a Fast and Furious style like car heist or something. These heists seem to be a big focal point for the game. It's going to be the driving force of the story, but I don't want to talk too much on it. But the car customization's back. They're making car battles, and what I mean by that is like cop chases and being chased by like the rival gangs, like vehicles and things like that. They're trying to bring that back in a way that it's actually a fun experience where you're kind of jostling with cars. You're trying to take them out. They're trying to take you out. It's a cool gameplay demo. I would recommend going to take a peek at it. It's pretty short. But if you want a good game for reference, Need for Speed Most Wanted back in 2006, not the 2012 Most Wanted, would be a good idea, or could be a good idea of what the gameplay looks like. I don't know if it's going to feel that way. It may feel like one of the newer Need for Speed games, but that should give you a good idea.
One thing I didn't like from that gameplay trailer, and I'm sure it's just because they didn't want to make it too hard, is when the enemy guys they were in black cars and you were in like a blue and white car. So when the enemy black cars came up, it was literally the guy would like hit the car twice and it would just explode. And I'm sure that's just for
That was only for their floor demo.
yeah, for the demo, but when you actually played it, it was probably harder. You actually had to like hit them into poles and stuff.
Yeah, so one thing I wasn't expecting it, but they actually did kind of like, since EA Play was kind of on its own, they take a different approach to the post-conference content that they do, where E3 is a little bit less post-conference heavy. Like they do some stuff, but not much. EA actually kind of took the developers from these games and actually went and like sat down with Twitch players and let them get hands on and actually kind of play their version of the game demo. The person that they had play did the exact same mission as the floor demo at the conference. The cars took a lot more damage to bring down. And also, too, the one thing that it looks like they're going to bring back from the older Need for Speed games that involved cop chases is as you played and you were doing these pursuits, like the longer you were in these pursuits, your heat level would go up. So the level of the cars, the tactics that they would use would also increase. You know, in that Most Wanted game, for example, the like level ones were just like your typical like Oldsmobile Cruiser or whatever. And like level 5 was like Corvettes that like they would actively try and like pin you against walls and like box you in so that you couldn't go anywhere. So that's going to change as well once you play the game, is it looks like there's going to be this like varying level of enemies and like different archetypes for the cars and stuff as far as what they're going to try and do. So yeah, I think the floor demo just wanted to like oversimplify it for the sake of time. I think once you actually play it, it's going to be a little bit of a different experience.
All right, so that's good on Need for
Yeah,
Speed.
there's you say not too much else
Yeah,
to
there
cover
wasn't
other
too
than
much.
that.
It seemed like the story seemed pretty cool. You are going to play multiple
It's a
different.
racing game.
You're going to play multiple different main characters. It seemed like as well, and you're basically just like a small gang that's trying to steal from, a bigger
The big
gang.
gang.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that they did do in the last game, which I like, which I didn't like it about the last game, and they changed it for this one. But the last game was like perpetually online, so you couldn't pause it, which for a racing game is really
Annoying.
frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they took that feature out, so you can play offline if you want. But what I'm hoping is that how they have these three main characters, like would be like in an ideal world, I guess. But let's say you got 2 or 3 buddies that play the game, is you guys kind of all have your own customized cars and stuff, and you actually can kind of like do some of these bigger missions together. I know you'll be able to go and like drive around the world and probably get into like cop pursuits together and stuff, but somehow integrating it into the story would be kind of nice. It's usually just a nice little multiplayer touch like that. But I'm excited to get a car, make it look really funny, have it just look, I guess not funny more or less, but weird, and then
Hot
just go
pink.
get in cop.
Hot
Hot
pink.
pink with crazy spoilers, like yeah, I mean they did do a customization demo and like they had a off-road like Beetle, and it was probably one of the funniest looking things I've ever seen. Um,
I was not watching that.
you know, yeah, that was in the post conference videos. Um, but yeah, but being able to do stuff like that and like actually play with your friends and get like a group of like 5 or 6 of you if you really wanted to, and like drive around the city, like enjoy the game, but also to like get in these like epic cop chases where like 5 of you are trying to like help keep each other alive while the cops are chasing you. Like to me, that sounds like a lot of fun, but I'm also very biased. I love like the racing games that are like that, so I'm excited. And if you like the older Need for Speed games, I think you'll feel right at home in these ones.
All right, cool. So the next couple of games we're not gonna spend too much time on are the sports games. So FIFA 18, basically what they um the trailer that they released, it seemed like it was like the my player kind of thing. And you were I don't remember what the character's name was, but it seemed like it was going to be like his second season or something like that. Like he's not a rookie anymore, but he tore it up in the rookie season. So that's what everybody's talking about for this game. Is this guy again?
Yeah, and that was kind of the focus of all of their sports games, was having like these actually like good like kind of story modes essentially for like playing through someone's life going into the game. They added that in last year to FIFA 17, and I guess it was like the biggest hit for the game. Like everyone loved the story. I guess it was really good. I don't personally play FIFA. I don't really play sports games except for 2K, unfortunately. But I guess the story was really good, and this is just going to kind of build off of that, and like you said, like kind of go into like the next stage of his career, whatever that is.
Yeah, and um playing off of that is, I think, for those sports games now are always going to have that my player story. And I say that because Madden 18 now has a story mode as well, and this is the first time that a Madden game has a story mode where you make your own character and your own character has his own story.
Yeah, and they another cool thing too, and this is more in the post conference stuff. I know I think you had left like right after the EA conference to go do something, so I know you missed quite a bit of it. Um, the cool thing about the Madden one, which I don't know how it plays out in the other ones, is you essentially take this character from like high school to college to the pros. But they said the interesting thing is that there's going to be dialogue options and stuff that seems like to kind of forge your own story, for lack of a better term. But not everyone is going to have the same path. So you may be a character that goes from high school to college to the pros. I know they said that there's like an instance where like you go to college and like you didn't quite cut it, so you end up going to play for like the CFL basically, and you go play there and you get recognized, and then you come back and like get drafted, or like you sign onto an NFL team or something. So they said not everyone's story is going to be the same, which I think is kind of cool. Um, it just makes it it just makes it unique for every person.
I was still watching, I was just making dinner, but
Oh,
I
okay.
wasn't paying attention very well because obviously I was focusing on making dinner.
Yeah.
Next is it's gonna do this game could actually make a comeback, and I'm talking about NBA Live 18 because 2K is, it just doesn't seem like they give a
Super
shit.
stale.
Yeah, it doesn't
Super
seem like
stale.
they give a shit. Their servers are terrible. It takes forever to load anything, yada yada yada. So NBA Live 18 probably won't be that. It'll probably have better sales than it did last year because I'm thinking there's a lot of people getting sick of 2K18, and if 2K18 doesn't turn it around, NBA Live 18 or NBA Live, the NBA Live franchise can make a comeback. But there's really nothing new in the NBA Live other than they were talking about like a new, and I say new with quotation marks around it, defense system where if you are defending someone and they go to your left and you tap your right stick to the left, your defender would go to the left. And if the person goes to the other way, you tap it the other way and your defender goes the other way. And it's just like that's nothing new, but I mean, I guess you can
I'm
whatever.
I know they've always kind of prided themselves. I know on like the past couple of basketball games that they've tried to make is like having like using both sticks in a way that like it makes your player more responsive on the court. So like in 2K when you kind of do like you hold like the trigger and you kind of like like slow down on the defensive side to really stay in front of your man, like the controls sometimes are kind of shifty, so I think they're maybe saying that it's like a more like nuanced way to control the character. So you can do a better job of staying in front of them. I don't like that would be my guess. but yeah, I mean, there's no mechanics they can really add to the game at this point that are probably like new and improved. Maybe for their games, but it's not going to be like new by any means.
Yeah, definitely not. And then before we get into the last thing, they also announced the Battlefield 1 DLC. And again, they had two teams. It was Darkness 429's team versus Stone Mountain 64. And they faced off against each other, and Darkness won, thankfully, again in that one. But what they released is the first nighttime map, which I mean is whatever to me. We don't really play. I own Battlefield and I have all the DLCs for it and everything on Xbox, but I don't play it, and I don't really care, and I haven't really played it very often. I'm just not a Battlefront or Battlefield guy. I like Battlefront more.
Yeah, Battlefield's. I feel like it's a good game, but it's definitely not for everyone. Ooh, shit. My computer's gonna restart in 15 minutes. That's fun. Just a heads up.
You can't stop it.
Nope. Tried.
Plague of the things.
Woo-hoo.
What fucking word am I trying to? Technical difficulties. Plague of the technical difficulties. It returns this week as well.
Yeah. I have literally no idea how long that's going to take to update too. But I feel like I just did it last week, so I don't know why it's updating again. Anyway.
So the last game for EA Play was a game called A Way Out, which is sort of like a co-op, but you can also play it solo. Story-driven game of two guys that both are in jail trying to get out, and I think the main protagonist is some guy that took one of the guy's daughters. And it looked really sweet. The guy that presented it, and it was his idea, he was a really cool dude, and I think he really had a good key part in selling the game and getting people interested in it, because I think he's a French guy, and he was different, and he was very entertaining, and he had a very good stage presence. And I think that drove people to be more interested in the game. Not to mention the game looks pretty sweet too.
Yeah, it looks very unique. That's probably the best way to describe it. I don't know how action heavy it's going to be. They didn't necessarily highlight that. I know it's obviously going to be very co-op heavy. The game has to be played in split screen co-op, whether it's over Xbox Live or local, which I think is going to be really cool. It's going to take some getting used to at first, but I think it's going to be a really cool way to play the game. But I can't remember, was this game a part of one of the studios? Because EA had, like, just before they announced this game, had just talked about, like, giving some of the third-party developers, like, the support that they needed to make really good games.
Yep.
Isn't this coming from one of those, like, because they made Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons, which was a really good game also. And I think they're kind of more of like a third-party developer than like a mainstream developer, and EA is just like giving them.
I think they're more of like a publisher in this stance, where they're talking about the game and they're going to try and distribute it, as to where they're not putting their team. They're backing it too. They're putting money into
into
the game to help.
But yeah, this game looks super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the concept seems simple as far as the story. Like, it's a prison break, and then it's life, like, once you're on the run. But it seems like it's going to be a very emotional story, and like you're going to get really involved in it, I'm hoping. And I think having that split screen co-op is going to be a great way to like really get people like invested in the story and like invested in the characters and in each other playing the game. So we'll see. I think it looks really good though.
And a couple of things to note about why we're saying it's different. Basically, you choose one partner to play, and that partner can play without you. Like he could be, if you're not there, and he could be off doing stuff where the other partner's not there. So I don't know really how, if you went to the player, how it would do anything, but you don't have to be like next. It's not like one of those 2-player games where you have to be next to each other the entire time, doing the same thing, doing the same mission and all that kind of thing. You could be off, in the right side of the jail, while your friend is off in the left side of the jail doing different things.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how like how open worldy the game
Yeah,
is.
it probably won't be that open worldy, but
Like, but yeah, they made it very clear that like if you're like doing a mission and there's multiple parts, like each of you are kind of like responsible for getting your own portion of the mission set up and taken care of, and then like it all kind of comes to fruition.
yep.
But you do it independently, yeah. And I don't know. It's like it's hard to describe the game without like if you haven't like seen it or without like having a gameplay video running like while we're talking about it. Um, but yeah, and like they even set it up. It looks like where you can kind of like one of you can like lure a guard into like a more like secluded area, and like the other person can be like hiding, waiting to like knock them out and maybe take their uniform or like, kind of. I mean, that's just an example. I don't know if that's a real thing, but that'd be like a kind of an example of it, I guess.
Yeah. And then I think another thing to note here is you can have so you start a game with your one friend, and you get halfway through the game and that friend doesn't want to play anymore or whatever. You can start a new game with someone else. You don't have to wait, and that's not your permanent person you have to play with. You can go to a different game. And I think they mentioned you have to start over with them, but I mean you can do the story with them as well. So it's not just one single game. You're stuck with that person. If they quit, you can't finish. I don't think it's like that.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly like those details. I know that they said you do have to play with someone else. Like you can't play on your own. I didn't necessarily remember the like explicit details like that, but I wouldn't be surprised for this kind of game. It seems like you really have to play with the same person and like understand like where you guys are at in the story, what you were doing, what you've already done, kind of get to your like to get to that point.
Right. So that was EA Play. Unless you don't have anything else to say about that.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, that was EA Play. And now we're going to move on to the first technical E3 conference, Microsoft. I admire Microsoft so much for like always going first at E3. It takes balls to do that, and I admired it a lot.
Yeah.
So basically, for Microsoft, they had a huge lineup. They had 22 Microsoft exclusive games, and when I say Microsoft, that means PC and Xbox. They're not doing anything that's just Xbox anymore. If Microsoft is developing it or publishing it, it's going to be for both platforms.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
You love to see that because I mean it just for one it expands their reach as far as the audience they can capture with their games.
Hmm.
But also too, I feel like it's in this day and age like there's just as many people with PCs as there are consoles, and it's just a nice way to kind of bring it all together.
So I believe it was the first thing that they announced was the Xbox Scorpio. If you know anything about this has been them talking about it a lot, and they finally at E3 released all the information. So Project Scorpio was the code name for it, and they came out with the actual name here, which is the Xbox One X. It's going to be 4K native. It's the smallest console ever. It's the most powerful console ever. And its price point is like $499.99, which is it's a lot for a console. Usually you want to set that $399.99 price, but when you actually look at the specs for this game,
it's nice. It's good.
My Discord just gave me a notification. Okay. But if you actually look at the stats for this game and like what's going into it, if you compare PC at this point, it's almost an $1,000 PC that you'd be buying with the same specs as the Xbox One X. So it's pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for what you're gonna get out of it, you're gonna get a good machine. Like it's gonna do everything you want it to.
Plus, you don't have to pay for people to put it together. It's already put together. You don't have to worry about. It's like the first liquid cooled console ever too, so there's no fan noise, which is awesome.
Yeah, I don't know. I will say my only quarrel with the entire Microsoft conference was like, did you ever know that they released the Xbox One X that day, like and officially announced it? Because literally every single gameplay was like,
Yeah,
shut on 4K. on the Xbox One X.
Yep.
And then like it was just this like black screen with white text, and they flashed it before every single video.
Yep. And I think one thing to say, one kind of not so good note to say about the Xbox One X is they're saying that it's going to be for native 4K, which means it's not upscaled. They're not doing it in 1440p and stretching it to 4K. It's actually 4K. And 60 frames per second. I don't think you're ever really going to get that unless it's going to be like a smaller indie game that isn't as graphical intense. So it's something like Destiny. They already came out with Destiny, or we're already talking about Destiny where it's going to be 4K, but it's only going to have 30 frames per second, not 60, because that's a very graphical intense game. And I mean, people with dual 1080 1080 Ti's are having would have trouble running Destiny at 4K and 60 frames per second.
I mean, at the end of the day, like, I got 5 minutes, by the way. I mean, at the end of the day, I would say that's not the worst thing ever. You know, they're certainly going to do their best to make sure that that's what it is. But and 60 frames per second does look really nice. But even if you look at the consoles now, like you don't see even some of those old like Xbox 360 games like really hit their 60 frames per second rating until they get like remastered and put on the Xbox One.
Well, the Xbox One is only 30 frames per second. It's never been 60.
But I like there's like some old games that I played on Xbox 360 that when I bought on the Xbox One, like they look a lot better, they run a lot smoother than they did on Xbox. So I mean, like 30 frames per second is still gonna look just fine.
Yeah.
If
there
the
are
resolution
a lot of FPS snobs out there that aren't happy about this, but I'm sitting here like, just shut up. It's not that important.
Yeah.
60 frames per second isn't that important on a console. They optimize the console for 30 frames to look perfectly fine. You can do what you need to do on a 30 frames.
Tell.
Yeah.
And the nice thing too is if they keep it at kind of like locked at that lower frames, is you run a significantly lower chance of the frames like dropping ever, because they have everything like it's so perfectly built to just run at 30 frames on the machine that they have.
All right, so before we get into the rest of Microsoft, let's just go ahead. You go ahead and restart your computer and text me when you're done, and we're just going to take a quick break. For those of you that are going to be watching on YouTube, I'm going to put one of those little boxes that puts you forward when we start again, and like I'll put some text in there that says, or maybe I might have to put a link down in the description. But anyways, I'll give you a link to when we start again, because I'm not going to download this and edit this out or anything like that. We're just going to move it from Twitch over. And those of you who are watching on Twitch, just wait a couple of minutes and we'll be
like
back.
5-10 minutes,
Yeah. We're going to
cool.
go on break. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Hello? Hello?
Ah, my
Did it?
computer's trying to do so much right now. Ah, hold on. Computer. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Oh. Hello? I can see clearly now, the rain is gone.
Wee-hoo.
Yay. Okay, so we're
25,
back.
25 minutes later.
Yeah.
Thanks for anyone
It's
who stayed
already
with
almost,
us.
oh my God, it's already almost midnight. Fuck. Okay, well, we're
Yeah.
going to be doing this for a while. This is going to be a long video.
Yeah. We covered the first portion in about
Yeah,
20, 25 minutes.
we
It was
could,
just
we
that.
could stop after Bethesda, I guess.
No, we can keep going.
Okay.
I don't care. No, I'm saying I think we'll cover it a little bit faster than like maybe like we could just
Yeah, we
I don't
talked
know.
like
Like
20 minutes for each game for EA Play, and we don't have to do that now. Okay.
yeah.
So, moving forward, another game that Kano Crisco is very excited about is Assassin's Creed Origins. I just
Oh
burped
yeah.
when
Oh
I
yeah.
said that stuff. So, basically, with Assassin's Creed Origins, they decided that they were going to go back in time to the origin of the assassin in Egypt. Take it away.
Yeah. So Ubisoft, they said they felt like one of their like games that was getting the most stale or that people were getting the most fatigue from was Assassin's Creed. Their past two games had like the lowest combined sales like of all time. So they took a couple year gap. They kind of reworked like the structure of the game. I mean, it's an Assassin's Creed game, so it's going to feel familiar. But kind of the core mechanics are just a little bit different. They wanted to focus on a story. We're going to ancient Egypt. There's going to be hopefully a pretty cool story. But yeah, it is the origin of the assassins, like the actual brotherhood itself. Um, and it seems like they got a pretty interesting character. They added some RPG elements, so now you can actually get like drop items from the enemies that you kill. So you can carry like two different bows, two different melee weapons. You have a shield. Instead of having eagle vision, you have an actual eagle, which I think is cool. I'm sure they'll kind of talk about how the assassins kind of become like imbued with this eagle vision. Um, I think it's got a lot of potential. The nice thing, I've done a lot of reading on the game itself, and the nice thing about of ancient Egypt is there's not really, because of how long ago it was, there's not much for them to historically base the game on. They have the time period, they have like the architecture and the style of everything to be correct, and they know some of the prominent figures, but they aren't necessarily tied to anything like in Assassin's Creed 2 with the Renaissance. Like it's a very well documented time period. Ancient Egypt doesn't have that, so they have much more creative liberty with the story. So we'll see. I'm excited for it. I mean, they took a year gap, but I'm hoping that this year gap was enough for them to kind of like really rework the game, like create a good story, make it something that people want to play for a long period of time.
I thought it's been like 3 years since they came out with the last one.
Syndicate came out in 2015.
Oh, so 2 years.
Yeah,
But
or yeah,
it'll be 3 years when it actually comes out. No, because it's
no,
coming
it
out.
comes out this year.
Yeah, it comes out this year, at the end of this year.
Yeah, I mean, when I say one or like 1 year, I mean like I guess one like release period where like they skipped a 1 year like one release period for their game is probably maybe like the better way to phrase it. I
And I've
guess
got to
because it will have
say,
been 2 years.
it's definitely Assassin's Creed. I was on that boat of it got boring and stale, and I didn't want to play it anymore. I'm excited to play this. It looks really cool. It was very beautiful, and they did have items before, like you from the story you unlock items and you can make them better, whereas to here they're going to have item drops instead, and I think that's going to make this game like leaps and bounds better.
Yeah, I'm interested to see too because like with the weaponry and stuff, obviously that changes your like how your character like because like actually like when you equip like like different bows and stuff, they actually look different on the character like when he's wearing them basically. Um, I'm interested to see how the customization, like the actual like physical customization of the assassin goes. That's always been one of my more favorite parts ever since they added it in Assassin's Creed 2, was kind of having a little bit of creative liberty. And in Assassin's Creed Unity, it was a very, very strong element to the game was being able to kind of make your own assassin, um, and have them, I guess, look the way you wanted. But I think the thing here is they're foregoing some of the they're foregoing like a major gameplay changing effects for the items so that you can kind of once you get to like let's say max level, right? and you're getting these items, you can kind of just pick the aesthetic items that you want as opposed to making you more sneaky or lowering your detection radius, things like that. Which I personally am a fan of. This isn't a game where I really want that much control over my character. I just want to be able to like make him look cool and be a badass assassin.
Yeah, and they basically what they did is they had, another 10-minute gameplay trailer for this and showcased.
Yeah,
And
they did
I
do
did,
one.
yeah, I did watch the one that they did it after, where the guy was like in the lake thing, and he was
Yeah,
driving
that
around
was
in that.
super
That was
cool.
really cool, and I think a reoccurring theme in this game was seamless transitions from air to water. I think that's becoming like a big thing in the gaming community where it used to not necessarily had to load, but it didn't really make sense when you're going from the air to the water. And these things you're just it's like natural. It's very natural
Yeah.
feeling going from above water to underwater.
Yeah, it's kind of to me, really looking at the game, to me, they kind of picked the best elements from the games that they've made in the past. So like Black Flag had an underwater element. Like it wasn't necessarily the strong point of that game, but it gave them a good basis for how to do the underwater gameplay here because it was, it still played like an Assassin's Creed game even though you were underwater. I know the big thing that they haven't done in a while is the assassins are supposed to be missing their ring finger on their left hand, because that's like where the hidden blade is.
Mm-hmm.
That's supposedly like going to be like he is supposedly going to like chop his finger off in the game, which I think it's a cool like homage to the older games and like the older lore. And then the free running, like that's more of like the modern games just being on the newer engine. The free running mechanics look awesome. The animations look cool. I know they changed the way you actually free run, so it should play pretty well. I'm hoping as well. They did kind of switch. Yeah, they kind of reworked most of the game actually, so I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll definitely be worth picking up. So next on the list, and I thought this was really weird, but I guess it's not. This is what they opened with, was Forza 7, and they unveiled a new Porsche or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah,
I thought that
yeah,
was weird
it was
because it's
weird.
like none of those people there, aside from like Phil Spencer, are even going to be able to buy this car. But I guess as you were explaining it, is those people that play Forza 7 and love Forza 7, love the cars, and get really excited about that. I don't know how many people there were actually those people, but I mean, I guess the ones watching, I feel like that would be really cool.
The only thing I can think as to why they did it is Porsche is one of, and this is kind of like random video game fact. EA for the longest time was the only gaming company that had an agreement with Porsche to have their cars in game. There was even a series of Forza games where like they didn't have like Porsche specifically. All the car models were exactly like the Porsche cars, but they were like off brand, like they were like a made
Like
up
in
brand.
GTA.
Yeah, so it was basically like a GTA Porsche in a Forza game, which is all licensed vehicles. Um, their EA's license with Porsche recently ran out, and so I think they've since re-signed, not only with EA, but like they've kind of opened up because they had exclusive rights to the Porsche.
Yeah.
And now that's reopened up. So I think this is kind of like Microsoft's jab, if like for lack of a better term, like kind of like a jab at them, like, hey, like we've got the supercars now too. Like, we've got the really fun like racing cars that people know.
Yeah, and Forza 7 is they're only going to get better cuz it's pretty much Forza is pretty much the same thing. It's just racing and you got to put new maps and new cars and make it kind of fine tuning it. That's more of the release of Forza because Forza there's two different series. There's the Forza Motorsports, and that's the one that they're talking about. And then there's the one that's the online play, and they switch every other year. So I mean, they get, but it's every other year. It's the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just, I mean, it's typical at this point. I would say it's basically the same thing as like Call of Duty back in the day. Like one of them was doing like the older genre, the other one was doing Modern Warfare. same Call of Duty label. I don't know if it's the same developers for the Forza and
That I
Forza
don't know.
Horizon.
I don't know.
I don't
I
remember that
doubt
much.
it.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the Forza Motorsport series. I prefer the Horizon series only for the reason that I'm not big on simulation racers. But they do a great job with this because, like you said, like what they do pretty much every year is they update the car list, add more cars. Like they've got a ridiculous car list in their game. They update the cars, they add more cars, and then they refine the realistic gameplay.
Yep.
And just make it as good as it can be.
I don't I'm I don't know when the exact date is that this is releasing, but it's probably going to be holiday season where everything else is.
Yeah, typical like probably September, no October, November type time frame.
All right, so the next thing on our list is real quick. If you know what PlayerUnknown Battleground is, this was kind of already known, but it's also coming to console. I don't know if it's Xbox. I don't think it's Xbox exclusive. I just think that Microsoft, that's where they announced that it's coming to console. Because I don't see the point of them keeping it just on Xbox. I think that would go to PlayStation 2 as well, or PlayStation 4 as well. So yeah, that was announced. Obviously we already have it on PC, so we're not going to be playing it on there. We're going to be playing it on PC.
No, it's exclusive.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
It's a Microsoft
Which
exclusive then.
good
Which
for Microsoft. Good for Microsoft. They needed something like that.
I mean, I guess it's already oh my gosh. It's already sold millions of copies on PC, so
Yeah, but I mean, I know we'll probably cover it when we get to Sony's panel, but like that's the one area where Microsoft I feel like has been lacking for a really long time. Like they've got these exclusive games, but they just don't stack up. Like
yeah.
don't compare to the other games well. So for them to get a game like this, like it may already have been released on PC, but like it's a good game for them to have. I think a lot of the first person shooter people and like team based players are really going to enjoy the game.
So it's a Microsoft exclusive because Xbox doesn't have any
Yeah.
exclusives.
Or,
It's
yeah,
Microsoft,
yeah.
which
You-
basically means
yeah.
it's not going to Sony or Nintendo. All right, so next up on the list is a trailer that I thought was really clever. It's State of Decay 2. It's a zombie game, and the what the trailer did was basically it started off you're this guy, you're going through, a daily life of zombies. And the State of Decay zombies aren't like, when I think of realistic zombies, what would really happen? I think of like The Walking Dead, where everyone's, kind of slow, but they get up in those big crowd. They can get up in big crowds and overrun you, and they walk slowly to the sounds. And if they see living creatures, they go after the living creatures. But in State of Decay, the zombies, there's like tiers of zombies. There's like those base zombies that are slow, there's running zombies, and then there's like big tank zombies and stuff like that. And in this, the cinematic actually takes you through those steps of zombies where they, it started off where they were just, limping along trying to get them, and then it gets to a different kind of zombie, and then they start running, and then eventually this guy is the main character is talking the entire time, and this big old brute zombie comes in, grabs him, and rips him in half. And the story then switches to the girl that he was with, that he decided he was going to save. A scene earlier, he decided he was going to save her, and now she's the main character. And I thought that was just like a really creative, different way to approach this zombie thing, where I mean it happens. Someone dies in a zombie thing. If you watch Walking Dead, people die all the time, and someone else has to take that, other than Rick. Rick can't die, he's immortal. But it makes more sense here to do something like that, and to be more clever and really think that through.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, especially with the genre of zombie games. Like, there's just so many of them now
Mhm.
that I think to really catch the attention of people, you do have to do something clever like this. I do like the concept of the actual game itself for this one, maybe a bit more than other zombie games. Left 4 Dead, obviously, very like arcade, like play with your friends, like it's going to be absurd, like it's going to be crazy. This game is much more of like the survivalist type mindset, but you do it with like a group of friends, so you can actually like in the world, like you can find like a church or I feel like the church or something like a very typical like zombie apocalypse hideout, but you can like literally like go and find a church and like with your friends like essentially build this fortress like, and then you go out into the world during the daylight hours and you try and like forage for like food and
Nice,
supplies,
yeah.
and you basically try not to get caught out at night, because if you get caught out at night, then like it gets crazy.
Yeah. And you can like you can come across like a decision where, are you going to pick this person up, or are you just going to kill them, or are you going to leave them, or something like that. And I'm pretty sure this game was saying about how you can make a decision and then like a butterfly effect where something will happen this time, where if you go back and you do it again, maybe something else will happen. I think they were explaining that in this game too. How there
Yeah,
were different
I'm excited to
outcomes
learn more about it. I
and
know the first
consequences.
one. So I know the first one was really, it was a good zombie game. The nice thing about a sequel is as long as they change enough to the point where it doesn't feel like a carbon copy from the first one, it really gives them a chance to kind of refine the core mechanics that worked well. I didn't personally play the first one, but I've heard really good things about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's something definitely a lot of people could be excited about. Next, I don't remember what the name of this game was, but it was basically like a Minecraft thing with dwarfs where it was co-op, it was for sure co-op. You take 4 guys, you go into a dungeon, you forage for resources, and then you might like come across enemies, and then I'm sure you can like take your resources back and upgrade your weapons or buy new stuff and everything like that. It was pretty cool. It was a different style of Minecraft looking kind of, it wasn't, that pixelated thing. It was
Yeah, like much
a
smoother
different
and
art style. Yeah, it wasn't like a realistic art style, but it also wasn't like a pixelated art style either.
yeah, it was just it was like artistic, I would say, is probably like the right way to
It was
phrase it,
cool.
I guess.
It would be
Yeah.
something that I would try if it's on sale.
Yeah, not a game that like in the same way that I'm never gonna buy Minecraft. Like this isn't a game that's gonna like
You
catch my
already own
attention
it.
enough. But yeah,
Well,
for
I
the
own it.
right, well then I probably do too. But for the right price, it's for the right price, it'd be worth checking out.
Yeah.
I like the, I don't know, those games can be fun, I guess, if you get into them. But I
Yeah.
don't know, I always feel a
Speaking
little weird about them.
Speaking about Minecraft here, they also had a little thing because I'm pretty sure they have a deal with Microsoft and where they're not on. I don't think they're on PS4, but I don't know that for sure. But Minecraft is coming out with a new texture pack and also a 4K. They're one of the games that are upgrading to the 4K. So it'll be a free upgrade if you get an Xbox One X. You'll be able to play it in 4K, which makes total sense because I'm pretty sure they already have 4K on the PC anyways. So it couldn't be that hard of a transition into 4K.
Yeah, I think the name of their like their update for the game is funny. It's like the super duper graphical like graphics update
Yeah.
or something. I think it's funny. Um, it's still like I don't quite get the whole like Minecraft in 4K concept. Like, I mean, I do, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, I don't see the point. It's Minecraft. To me, it seems like what they're changing a lot is like obviously like the quality of the textures on the blocks, and how they look, but as well like the lighting and stuff seems like it's gonna be a little bit more dynamic. But again, it's Minecraft, so like they could just as easily not do a 4K update, and I
It's
don't think anyone would really be mad.
it's still one of those games where if I'm like stressed or have anxiety or something, I can just go in and chill. But there's like so much to do that I never know what to do. Like I end up always building like a fort in the side of a mountain and then finding some lava and making it fall down at some cool places, and then I'm done. So then we're going to move on to the next thing, which is Dragon Ball Fighter Z, which, as you know, what was the one that just came out called?
Xenoverse 2?
Xenoverse 2 just came out, and that's, more of like a 3D newer style of fighter where you can fly around places, you fight people, and like it's more of like a motion. You can move anywhere on the map. Whereas this Fighter Z is going to be more of that Mortal Kombat, Injustice, 2D, left and right moving. More like the Budokai series. I honestly thought it was going to be like a reboot of Budokai.
Oh, I would have been. If they would have rebooted like Budokai 1 and 2 or something, I would have been so pumped.
Yeah, but it's definitely, I think there was God mode and stuff like that, so it's definitely going to be basically the same thing as Budokai, except Budokai was more of like the cartoon where it was the same like texture, the same cartoon look as the actual anime, whereas this one seemed a little bit more.
Budokai was 3D models. They were way like super cell shaded with like the like dark black. No, Budokai actually, if I remember correctly, they were like 3D models, and they actually tried to not make it like super realistic, but like they took a lot of like the animated like like hard lines and stuff out for like the muscle definition and stuff. Like if I'm not mistaken, I think that's how Budokai was.
I don't remember. I would have to play it again.
It's been a while, but
this one seemed a little bit more true to the actual
anime
cartoon
for sure.
style. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's way more like actual animated. Like the fighting is animated. Like it's very over the top in that sense. So I think it looks fun. It looks really cool.
Yep. Next thing on our list, I just realized I don't have notes for a lot of these, and I don't remember what they are. I believe I to my understanding, Black Desert Online has been on PC. It's an MMO. I think that's coming to the Xbox. I'm not 100% sure on that because the name of it was just Black Desert, which Black Desert Online, I guess it could be different if it's possible, yeah. But I think it's the same thing. So it's just the PC version of the MMO is getting ported over to the Xbox, just like the Elder Scrolls Online. Not gonna play that game. What was The Last Night?
Oh, that's the one. Just did like a trailer for it. I don't know. That's the episodic game that they announced. I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's going to be like three different episodes or something. And this is like the prequel episode, or like it's like episode 1, but it's like kind of like a prequel or something. I don't know. They didn't really talk too much about it. They said it's like that's gonna be more of like.
Oh yeah, this is like the super pixelated game. It's super pixelated.
Oh.
And you're like a normal guy who's walking around and doing stuff. They didn't really show much gameplay. It seems like it's going to be like a platforming puzzler, maybe even a side scroller possibly. But yeah, it looks cool. I don't really care.
Yeah, the one thing aside from the fact that they kind of like shoved the Xbox One X down your throat for the entire conference, I liked how many games they announced for Xbox as far as like what they focused on. What I wasn't a fan of is like, and this is why I'm having a hard time thinking of that game specifically, is like that was one of those games where like literally they just like started showing like 30-second gameplay clips for like 10 minutes straight of just like 20 different games.
Yeah.
And so like they all kind of like ran together. I think they announced a total of like 42 games in an hour, or like a little over an hour. Some of them were just name drops, but like this is one of those games where they had a clip, but it's kind of just getting lost in the mix.
All right, so on to the next one is, well, this wasn't in the montage. This was like a standalone little thing. And so is this one. The Artful Escape, which is another side scroller where you're basically like some average Joe who's a musician. He's got a guitar, and you can do like different like jumps and stuff, and you can play the guitar, and it does different things. It seemed pretty cool. It's definitely gonna be like a $10 game. That's kind of like Inside or whatever the other one is.
Yeah. Um.
But it's definitely very artful. Indie game.
Yeah, it looks fun.
It's gonna be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I always enjoy games that kind of incorporate like musical concepts into them without them being like a Guitar Hero type game. Um, I don't know, Dave, did you play the side-scrolling Rayman game that they came out with on Xbox?
Yes. Aunt Kelly had
Like
it, and I played it all the time. Oh no,
no, the newer one
no, I did
that
not.
like came out a couple years ago or a year ago. There was a special mission like at the end of every stage where like they would play a song basically, and like as you were like running across the stage and like attacking enemies and like jumping and stuff, and you like slide on something, it was the different like the guitar riffs and like the drum beat and stuff to the actual song, and they'd have like the enemies like screaming in like different pitches and stuff to like match what the actual song sounded like. So this could be a game like that where maybe even if it's like original scores, like as you do things, like the music's gonna play, and like maybe like how you play in the world could even like affect the music that gets played. But it does look really cool. It looks like got a nice like got an interesting art style to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. The next one on our list is Code Vein, and this was like an anime styled Dark Souls game. It looks pretty legit. There's not much to it. It's a little bit of a gameplay trailer, and I mean, it seems like Dark Souls, but in a modern day. Like you're running down a street fighting this monster. I don't really know if there's like any story to it yet. Story to this. I don't. I'm not gonna actually watch the whole trailer. I was just reminding myself what it was. But yeah, that's another game that looks pretty cool. There are a lot of games, and I think this is the E3 nostalgia kind of thing. There are a lot of games that look good, but they might not actually be good on release. So this one, like the Artful Escape, The Last Night, the Dwarf game, they're all games that like I'm interested in, and E3, they have definitely done a good job of, creating this trailer that goes with it to interest me, but I'm not like gonna jump on it. I'm not gonna go out and pre-order these games right now because they look so awesome. I want to see how they develop some more for sure, and I'll be paying attention to them. And they'll probably end up being games I might want to buy on sale, but never full price because I'm a cheap bastard.
Yeah, and I think too, I think you have to look at it as far as like what are you going to get out of the game. Like a lot of these games that they announced, like the side-scrolling games and stuff especially, is like you're only ever going to really probably play through that story once,
maybe twice.
Yeah, if they've got some maybe like a new game plus mode or something to like maybe like find the additional collectibles and stuff, like probably twice. But the games are very short-lived. So unless you feel like you're going to get much out of them, like you can't justify paying like $30 for them or $25 for them.
Code Vein might be different though because it's more of a Dark Souls-y type of game, but I've never beaten a Dark Souls, even though I have 2 of them, and I've never been like Bloodborne or anything like that because that's PlayStation exclusive, and I don't have a PlayStation. But yeah, we'd see with that one.
I mean, those games they take such a time commitment, and it's one of those games where like you're gonna have to like, especially if it is like Dark Souls, like when you sit down and start that game, like you have to make a commitment to finish the game.
Yeah.
Because if you stop playing that game for like 2 weeks and then you go back to it, you're gonna be like, what am I doing? Like what am I doing? What like
realistically, you're not gonna go
how
back.
do I play? Yeah.
You haven't played for 2 weeks, you're probably done.
Yeah.
Or you're at a really hard part and you don't want to play anymore anyways.
True.
On to the next one. Here we're going to spend a little, well, I guess not, but Sea of Thieves had another gameplay demo. It wasn't a trailer, it was a demo. It was kind of both because it was definitely like scripted and they knew that what they were going to do and all of the encounters and stuff like that. but it was also very, very long to be just like a trailer. But basically, they came out
Yeah,
and
it was a
they,
gameplay. It was like a gameplay expo, yeah,
yeah,
or like gameplay demo, yeah,
and
for sure.
it was really cool. There's gonna be a lot of things to do. You can one of the things that really excited me is putting yourself into a cannon and shooting you wherever you need to go, and that was awesome. And it didn't seem like there was fall damage, so there's literally no consequences of doing that except for maybe you miss and you land in the water and you get eaten by a shark. But still, it'd be sweet to shoot yourself from one ship to another. Also, they added guns, which I remember the last time. I don't remember what event it was, but the last time I was listening to the podcast Unlocked, which is IGN's Xbox podcast, and Ryan McCaffrey was talking about, or not, no, it was Dustin. Dustin had somehow gotten off his ship, gotten onto the other ship, and there was no way for the other team to do anything to stop him, to kill him or anything like that. So he was like taking cannonballs and throwing them overboard and like trying to break down walls so the ship would sink and everything like that. And there was nothing the other team could do other than like follow him around and try and like fix what he was fucking up. And this is just a different way to do that. Now they added guns, so there's like this combat system with it, and it's gonna be a pretty aim intensive kind of thing, because if you can't aim, it's sticking true to the got the gun, put the gunpowder in, put the bullet in, shoot one shot, and do it all over again. So you're gonna have to be landing
Like
shots
slow,
to be
methodical
good.
shooting,
Yeah. And there's like shotguns and stuff. And also they got off the ship and did like a not
Like
a
a
mission,
dungeon.
but yeah, it was like a dungeon where they went through. They had a map to find the gold, the treasure chest, and they got the treasure chest, and then they got attacked by skeletons. And then eventually they got out. They got back onto the ship, and then that's when they got attacked by the other players who wanted their booty. And it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean it does it's what I'm most interested to see is like how the concept of like the pirate crew gameplay plays out. Like do we each have our own ships and we can kind of like upgrade them, or is it going to be a game that's really going to focus around me, you, and two other people being on like essentially being like a pirate crew? Because they even said like everyone kind of has like a job on the ship to make the ship move.
Right.
Like they had the one guy like climbing to the top into the crow's nest, another person was like unfastening the sails, and it might just be little stuff like that. But is it going to be something where you actually have to have like three or four people on your ship, or like you have to play as a team to really do anything?
Probably.
Which I'm okay with. It. I think that it adds kind of like that immersive level to the game where you really are kind of like a crew of pirates and you're going around trying to like get wealthy. Um,
Hopefully
and they
there's
kind of
matchmaking though for those solo players that want to play.
yeah. Or I know like Xbox has it now with the like looking for group stuff
Yeah.
that's like actively on like the Xbox guide and things, incorporating that kind of stuff. But they did highlight it a little bit where only I think of like the 4 or 5 people they had on their team, only like 3 of them initially got off the boat and went to the cave, and then the one guy shot himself out of the cannon to like meet up with them. But they left one person on the boat to like make sure that if for whatever reason one they were coming out of somewhere different, or they
To
got
have the
attacked, like
boat
that person
ready.
could take off.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could like take off and move if they needed to. So I thought that was cool. Like everyone's gonna kind of have a purpose on the team. Not everyone's gonna have the chance to go plunder in like the dungeons,
Right.
but it still serves a purpose to have you sit on the boat and wait.
Yeah, so that looks really fun. This is a game that I'm going to buy on release, and I'm probably going to pre-order it as well, because if we all get it, we're going to have a shit ton of fun.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna develop me a pirate accent and say "Yargy mateys" and stuff
Yep.
like that. It's gonna be a good time.
Ahoy, land ho.
Yes.
All right, on to the next one. This is something that I'm super intrigued about. Super Lucky's Tale. it is kind of like a Zelda game, Zelda type game, a platformer. There was another one that PC came out with that I'm more excited about. Tunic, which is also, I think they were both
Yeah.
foxes. Both of the main characters were foxes. That's why I'm confused right now because Tunic is a fox. My notes say Tunic, fox, Zelda type game. And Super Lucky's Tale, platformer with a fox. So there, I
Yeah.
don't even remember what the difference
That one
is.
was
I think
more. Tunic was the Zelda game. Lucky's Tale was the one where it was kind of like almost like a Crash Bandicoot type game, but with like a fox main character. Where like it's like
oh yeah, I'm way
yeah,
less
you know what I
interested
mean?
in this one. So
Yeah, it
it'll
was
be
like
the other one. We'll talk. That's why this one's not underlined. We'll talk more about the other one because the other one looked way
yeah,
cooler.
the other one looked cool.
This one kind of seems like it would be a good game for like kids to play.
Yeah, yeah, it's much more like it's like a Spyro the Dragon, like
Hmm.
stuff like that. Where like not that I wouldn't enjoy playing enjoy playing the games that I played when I was younger because it's
Yeah.
nostalgic, but I'm probably not going to go out of my way to play like a newer version or like a new rendition of
Yep.
those games.
So the next thing is huge because it's Cuphead. And for the longest time, Cuphead was um rescheduled, push back, push back, push back. They don't know when they're going to release it. It has a release date. It is September 29th of this year, which is awesome because this is, I think it's pretty predominantly like a puzzler side scroller with like bosses and stuff, and it's in that like 50s cartoon style, like Mickey
Yeah, it's
Mouse and that kind of
very like
thing.
graphically interesting.
Yeah, and but it's done super well.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
it's
great.
and I think it's one of those games where like it's going to be like a deceptively like mature game.
Yeah,
Like it looks like on the outside looking in, it looks like it's gonna be like this fun like kid game where it's like super cartoony, but I think it's gonna be very like adult content.
I agree with that completely.
Yeah, I think if anyone who's watching who didn't see it, if you're trying to picture like the type of game it would be, it'd be like a Castle Crashers or kind of like the old like if I don't know if you've ever played them like the old like X-Men arcade games and stuff where like you scroll like one direction, you fight like hordes of enemies real quick, and then like the arrow flashes and it tells you to keep going.
Yeah, and then you
Like that's
fight
the type of game it's
bosses.
gonna be. Yeah,
Yeah, it's gonna be real cool. That's another
yeah.
game that I'm excited
It'll be
about. That I'll
super
probably,
fun.
hopefully, as long as it's not $60, I won't spend $60 on it.
No,
But I'll
I
spend
think
like
that one will be probably like 20. I bet it's like 20 or 30.
I'll spend 30
It'll
on it.
yeah, it'll basically be like an older like Xbox arcade game.
We're still
basically.
not even through Microsoft yet. Maybe
They
we
talked to-
should. Maybe we.
We just like kind of skip Bethesda. Like
Yeah, it was trash.
Bethesda was just weird, and it was only a half
The only
hour.
the only thing that was good was Wolfenstein 2. All right, let's just bang through the rest of these Microsoft ones. Yeah.
What do we got?
Crackdown 3,
Uh,
Terry Crews, perfect person to market this for them.
Yeah, great game. Over the top gameplay, over the top character to do it.
Yeah. Then
We'll
they
see.
after Crackdown 3, that was when they had the montage of the indie titles, which bumped up their numbers. And that's page
ton of
1.
games.
We're done with page 1. On to page 2.
Woohoo!
Ashen. I thought this was going to be like a play off of Dark Souls, but it's not.
That game looks really cool.
Yes. So this was a game
Looks really cool.
that it's so stylized that the faces of the characters
Yeah, that threw me off a little bit.
aren't there. They don't have eyes, they don't have noses, they don't have ears, nothing like that. But it's
Or a mouth.
another
But like the guy,
yeah, or
one guy had a
mouth.
mustache though.
It's also yeah, he had a mustache of all things. It's another like dungeon driven combat 2-player co-op kind of story driven game.
So real quick, I don't want to get too far into this, but this game really piqued my interest, so I did some additional reading on it. To people that had a bit more of like a hands-on experience with it beyond just the trailer they showed. And they said that this is a game where when you're playing, like they said you basically like even though you don't have to, you really to be successful have to play with partners. However many you're allowed, I'm guessing it's probably like up to 4. That seems to be like the magic number for a lot of games, unless it's strictly like 2-player. Um, but they said like when they played, they were in kind of like this open world. It was like out in the light, right? And then they went into a dungeon where it was these like small, narrow like hallways basically, and you had to carry a light source with you. And if you didn't have a light source with you, like you were basically gonna die. They're like, but the big thing is that you have to work as a team to like beat these like dungeons for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see it. It's a very interesting art concept. The gameplay I think is going to be really interesting. Um, yeah, I think it's cool. It'll be fun. I think it's going to scare the shit out of me though.
Yeah, I think this is one. This
I
is
get really
another.
tense with these kinds
I'm
of
gonna be
games.
poor for the rest of my life because this is another game that I want to pick up. Next thing is just an episodic game. It's episode 2 for Life is Strange. Don't care about episode 1 of Life is Strange. It's like you're some like teenage girl and I don't give a shit. Then, and I wish I could talk all day about Shadow of War, but they came out with like gameplay of Shadow of War. It's gonna be great. Add it to the list of games I'm getting on release. Even though I haven't even beaten Shadow of Mordor yet, I'm still gonna buy it.
There's so many good games coming out at the end of the year. It's going to be an expensive holiday season.
Yep, because speaking about another good game is Ori and the Will of Wisps, which I just bought Ori and the Blind Forest. It was $10 on Steam for like a day, and I couldn't turn that down. So that's going to be a game that I'm going to be playing soon here. But Ori and the Will of Wisps, another one that's going to be great. And
those games do that Ori and the Blind Forest does such a great job of like in such a simple way creating like such like a it's not like emotional, like you're not gonna like cry over it, but like they do a great job of like of creating this like story that you really invest in, and like they do it so like in such a unique way and for such a simple game that like Ori and the Will of Wisps is gonna be awesome.
Yeah. Next on the list is probably the best part of all of E3 and the thing that I'm most excited about is original Xbox games are going to become backward compatible. I'm literally busting 10 nuts over this, especially if
that's a lot of nuts. Squirrels are gonna be mad.
Backwards compatible NBA Street Volume 2. That is literally, I will be in heaven
this is the only game
for the rest of my life if they backward compatible NBA Street Volume 2, because I still have my original Xbox and I'm not about to spend $50 on that game, even though it's the only way you can get it. And this would just be awesome.
Well, I think they're adding all these games too that they make backwards compatible to their digital library.
Oh yeah, they should
do
all of them.
And what I think is cool is they said that they're gonna kind of give them like a performance update, basically where like they run better, they have like kind of like better graphics and stuff, like marginally. But what I'm hoping that this really leads to for Xbox One is there's so many players out there, especially now with the games of the month, and I know PlayStation has a similar feature, so I'd say it applies to them as well. As I'm hoping that this leads to them saying, like, eventually announcing, hey, like every Xbox 360 game that's ever been made is now backwards compatible. Every Xbox One game that's been made is now backwards compatible. As opposed to just having like one list. And then, I think that's an ideal world, obviously, but I'm hoping that this is kind of their first step in that direction.
I don't know if they could do everyone. I think the list is just going to continue to grow and grow.
Yeah. Well, they don't necessarily need to do like online like server support for like the 360 games and stuff. Like there are plenty of games that they made that were like, single player stories and like stuff like that where they wouldn't need to do too much. They would just need to patch them up and then port them. Like if they could figure out an efficient way to do that, I guess would be the only way it would happen.
Next we have Agents of Mayhem, which if you love Saints Row, this is perfect for you because it's Saints Row in space. That's about all you have to say about that. If you don't know what Saints Row it is, then I feel sorry for you. You haven't played
Not the
like an
early Saints Row games, though.
like a newer Saints Row.
Yeah,
If you haven't
the
played an
4 months.
over the top game, Saints Row is definitely like 10 bars over the top.
There's nothing quite like running around a town swinging a giant pink dildo sword at someone.
And making people explode because of it.
That's kind of the pinnacle of life right there, to be honest.
Lastly, on our Microsoft list is Nidhogg 2, and this is another side scroller that actually looks really cool. You are basically sword fighting another person. It's strictly multiplayer. You're sword fighting one person and you're trying to get all the way to their side. So like you win, you kill them once, you move as far like you want to go to the right, your enemy wants to go to the left. You kill your enemy once and you run as far to the right as you can. And then they respawn and you fight again. You kill them again, you keep running to the right. If they kill you, you know, they're going to run to the left as far as they can. It's pretty cool. And then at the end, when you win, you
It's
like
like
jump off and this giant worm comes and eats you. So it's just like you did all that work and just got fucking eaten.
yeah, it looks funny too. If you just look it up real quick, it's the game like there's like short gameplay, but like you die very quickly, so it's
Yeah.
like very much like
It's
a
like a one
speed-based
shot
game.
kill for
Yeah.
everything.
But it's funny because they've got like swords, they've got axes, they've got bow and arrows, and then like they showed one where this guy's just like stomping the other guy's like
Yeah.
dead body, like stomping his head
Yep.
in. Those games are always fun. Is usually like a good way to like take some stress off and kill some time.
Have fun with friends. If you're pissed at your friend, then you can just kill him a bunch. Okay. Now we're gonna move to Bethesda. That's it from Microsoft. We're gonna move to Bethesda real fast. I hated their format. It was
It's
like
so weird.
they called it Bethesda Land, and they tried to make it seem like you were in an amusement park and they were taking you to these different sections. Like they started off with VR Land, where Fallout and Skyrim are going to be VR compatible, and then they moved to Morrowind, and then they moved to their card game Legends of whatever, and then whatever creator thing is, I don't know what that is. One cool thing was Evil Within 2. Actually need to
Yeah. I
I need
have
to
like a
relook
love
at
hate
this.
relationship with like scary games. Like I like to play them, but I can only sit down and play them for like an hour, and then I'm like I give myself like an anxiety attack or like a panic attack playing these games because I get so into them that when like little things happen, I freak out. Evil
Oh
Within
yeah,
2,
this one.
the trailer looked really good.
There's some
Wolfenstein
Tom
looks really
fuckery.
cool too.
Yes, that's the only thing that I really want to stress is going to be a great game. If you haven't played Wolfenstein 1, go play Wolfenstein 1 cuz it's phenomenal. And it's basically what Wolfenstein is if America didn't if America lost the World War II, everyone would be Nazis. And it's basically you're in like a modern time trying to be an American, trying to liberate yourself from the Nazis, and it's nuts. It's such a simple concept to just like take yourself and put yourself in if we would have lost World War II, but it's like just so in depth, and I think it's really funny that there are like machine robot dogs running around. That was a really funny thing
Yeah.
about it.
My biggest thing with this, aside from the fact that the format was just kind of a funky format, um, I think I mean, and I think this has to go off the fact that Bethesda's done quite a bit with the Elder Scrolls series here as of late. Like they just released the Morrowind update, and then they obviously remastered Skyrim. But like I was really hoping, and obviously supremely let down that I was hoping that this was going to be like the next installment of like the like Elder Scrolls, like the
Yeah.
next Elder Scrolls game, not an online game, but like the actual story game.
Elder Scrolls
Um,
6.
yeah, like this was a prime time for them to do it, and especially like looking back on it, I mean, their conference was very weak. It was like a half hour. All they did was say that all of the games they've made in the past are now playable in VR. There's 2 new games. Skyrim's going to the Switch, and that's essentially what their conference was like.
It
So there's a
wasn't
good
it,
chance.
and it wasn't even there were no new LPs. I think
No,
is the
and
biggest thing is
no, they're all like continuations of old games, which like I said, but like, even if it's a new Skyrim, like it's still an old title, but like people treat that like it's a new IP every time it comes out.
yeah.
Like people get pumped about it.
And like you said, it's only like 2 new games and the rest was basically DLC, which is stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's just like for how weak the conference was, like literally honestly, like the fact that it even took them a half hour to cover what they covered, if they wouldn't have had those 2 new games in there, it would have been a 15-minute conference.
Yeah.
That I think they could have honestly done a 15-minute conference, even releasing these 2 new games, but then done like a huge reveal for one of their like more long-standing titles. Obviously, it's Skyrim's turn. We just had Fallout, so we're on to Skyrim again. I think this is a good chance for them to do it. But Bethesda always does things a bit like whack, so it doesn't surprise me at all. But
All right. So on to the next section. We are going to skip the Intel section because I'd rather talk about video games than hardware, unless it's like a new Xbox or a new PlayStation, because basically all you need to know from Intel is they came out with a new i9 processor.
woo.
That's going to be like $1,500 to $2,000 just for your CPU, which is not in my budget ever. One thing I would like to say is the PC gaming show's format for this was also weird. They like did live interviews and I didn't like that. They also had a weird intro where they gave you like a tidbit of the cool stuff that's going to come. Like they were like, you're going to look at XCOM and you're going to look at Total War, Warhammer 2 and Shadowverse and this and Pub and all this kind of stuff. I was just like, just get into it. Stop wasting my time and just get into it. What else was it? Oh, and they also like promoted. So the person was English. The guy that was the predominant speaker spoke English. And at the beginning, he's like, if this broadcast is going to be broadcasted in these languages, you can go to our website to find them. I'm like, the people aren't going to be able to understand what you're saying, so that's not going to happen. And I thought that was weird. So it was like a really weird intro, and their format was just not good. I think Sony has done a really good job at setting the standard of game, a little bit of talking, game. And that's what you need to do, but not everybody wants to be Sony and they want to do their own thing. So
the one thing I like about Sony too, which I know we'll get to, is like it's just like their overall like presentation. They've killed it for like the past few years doing it, but like they literally bring in like orchestras to score the music while the gameplay demos are happening. Like it's a really cool concept. But anyway, we'll get to that. We'll go more in depth into their conference, but
neither of us are gonna talk too much about any of these games. There's 4 of them that I'm gonna talk about here. The other ones I'm just gonna snap right through them. So Xbox XCOM 2 DLC is coming out. There's gonna be new enemies, new bosses to fight, new classes. It's called War of the Machine. The next one was Ooblets, which if you know what Stardew Valley is, it really seemed like another one of those games where it's kind of 2D, but you have a 3D map where you can go, up, down, left, right, diagonal, and you just go around and you collect different resources and you upgrade your items and all that kind of stuff. You can you can go down and do dungeons and you can fight people because you have swords and all that kind of stuff, but it's really like a 2D, almost Paper Mario type of style. The next one is BattleTech. It's they basically made a turn-based tabletop game into a PC game. I forget what it looks like. I want to look at it real quick here.
Say this was one of the expos that I didn't get to see because it was during work and I didn't care enough about it to actually go back and look at it, unfortunately.
Okay, yeah, this is like you have a limited amount of space to move for your turn, And then your enemy, your guys are like set right here, and the enemies are set on this side, and you got to figure out your strategy of how you're going to get over there and eliminate all the enemies. It's basically one of those. It's a nice, it looks nice. I'm not into those games, so I'm not going to cover too much on that. Next was Mount and Blade. At first I thought it was Mountain Blade, like like a mountain, but it's Mount and Blade 2. Bannerlord, which is almost like chivalry, but on a bigger scale. And I think I'm pretty sure you control one person at a time. I believe that's what it is. And you can like be on you can be on like on a horse, and you can be from a different era, or a different type of warrior or whatever. So that looks cool. Probably won't get it. Total War Warhammer 2. Don't care. If you know what Total War Warhammer 1 is, then I'm sure you care about Warhammer 2, but we don't. Shadowverse, another game that I don't care about. And even in my notes, if you look at my notes, it even says I don't care. But I guess I'll say what it is.
I actually might look into this Mountain Blade 2. It's from what I've seen so far, like just looking at a couple of different articles, it seems like they're going to be real ambitious. It is an RPG, but it looks like they're going to be real ambitious in like making the game. So I don't know, could be fun. War games like that are always kind of cool.
Yeah. So Shadowverse is just a card game.
Okay.
It looked really bad now that I'm remembering what it is. I'm not excited about it at all. There's definitely better games out there. Like Hearthstone is probably better. Then we're gonna talk about Tunic. So this was the Fox game. It's very much like Zelda, but it has more of like a indie game feel to it, especially like the style wise. But it's something that is I'm very intrigued about. Like, even it was so close to Zelda that even the fox went into the bush, did a little spin move, and all the bushes were chopped down.
Yeah. These games always tend to catch my attention because it's familiar, like the gameplay's familiar, but the nice thing is that even though it's familiar, it's kind of a fresh spin on the game, like on the same type of game. And I don't know, like the art style of that game, like I think is to me what sells it, because it's so unique.
Very much so. And also it reminds me of like the old school Zeldas, and since I don't get to play the new school Zelda, I think that's what's kind of triggering me to want to play it more, because I miss the old school Zelda and I would love to play it again, and this is very similar to something like that, and I'm hoping it does good.
Yeah, it kind of gets your fix for it.
So next, we already talked about Pub coming to console. The Brendan Myers, I believe is what his name is the guy that is making Pub. He also came out during the PC gaming show and announced that there's going to be climbing, vaulting, parkour stuff, which is awesome, because if you play Pub, you absolutely hate walls. Walls are the bane of everyone's existence in that game. Plus the servers, which he said that the next patch is gonna fix servers, hopefully. But there's gonna be cool stuff where you can just get over a wall instead of fail jumping 27 times in a row, which is awesome. Also that they're updating weather so that there's going to be fog. They're also going to update rain.
Cool.
Yeah, that'll take out like long range gunfights. So maybe if it's a foggy map, you won't want to be sniping. You'll want a shorter sight and assault rifles, or an ump or a micro Uzi, shorter range guns, because you can't see as far. And then also he mentioned something about rain, how right now the rain map is always raining. He mentioned that maybe there's going to be like a weather system where, maybe it's only raining in some spots, maybe it's
A
not.
little bit more like dynamic or something.
Also, lighting wise, he said that they're working on like sunsets. So the sun starts at 8 o'clock and, finally rests at 10 o'clock or whatever, where the lighting changes by the end of the game, which can kind of, throw a little variety in it and make it pretty cool.
And two,
Oh,
I think one thing I like about that idea too, though, is with the sunset is I think it kind of because the one thing I think and you probably can agree with this is you almost kind of get lost in the game like while you're playing it, and like a game can literally take like a half hour, and like literally you may accomplish nothing in that game basically. Like
except for
you
looting.
just yeah, like all you did was stock up on armor and weapons, and then by the end, like you kind of like with the last like 5 minutes left, you like find someone. But I think maybe a sunset system like that would be kind of cool because it would kind of like almost set a pace for the game. So like, if it starts off a little bit darker in the morning, like it gets really bright in the middle of the game, and then like it starts to like get darker towards the end, like you're kind of nearing in on the end of the game. Um, could kind of add like a little bit of dramatic effect to it. I think would
Yeah,
be really cool.
going off of that, especially when you're like running, when you're always at the blue circle and you're, constantly running to the other side, you kind of like lose track of, how many players there
Time.
are and yeah, how long it's been, everything like that. And you just feel like you're running the entire time. This might help give like a visual gauge of where you are in the game. The next one, oh, also before we go to the next one, he announced that there's going to be a new crate only assault rifle. I don't remember what the actual name of the assault rifle is, but if you played Modern Warfare 2, and you know what the F2000 is, it looked like the F2000. I don't know if that's what it's actually going to be, but that was definitely one of my favorite guns in Modern Warfare 2 because nobody ever used it and I just loved it. And then
Didn't they mention something too, like a more of like an official like zombie type mode or something?
yes, I believe that is going to be a thing as well. And lastly, he said that they're working on 2 new maps, which I was actually surprised about just because these maps are already so big. The map that they have now is already so big. I didn't think they needed to make a new map, but that actually kind of makes it that gives it more variety. I think he said one was like desert and one was like in a snowy region. To where again, it's going to be, moving weather where some places it's going to snow and other places it's not.
One thing I would like to see coming out of that though is maybe one of the maps being a little bit smaller. Like I appreciate, especially because it is 100 players, I appreciate the map being as big as it is because everyone's kind of got their own style and strategy for how they attack each map or how they attack each game, and like depending on what direction you're coming in from and stuff like that. But I would love to see maybe a smaller map where even right from the get-go, like sometimes you do drop in with other people, but like I said, like there are some games where the game may take 25 minutes and you may not even see a person for 20 minutes. I wouldn't mind having maybe a map that's a little bit smaller, kind of forces the action a little bit more quickly and a little bit more aggressively with everyone.
All right, so the next one is called Tripwire Interactive Killing Floor 2. And this kind of seemed like another, almost like it's not the same style as Cuphead. Like you're at a carnival and there are like killer clowns and stuff like that, and you got to go through different sets of the different parts of the carnival and do different things. But it definitely had that like adult humor to it for sure, and is probably gonna be more of like a mature game that is funny but is also like really weird because carnivals are really weird.
Yeah, I don't do shit with creepy clowns. It freaks me out. But
I don't think this would be something I am very interested in either.
no,
Especially like just comparing it to other games, it doesn't stack up very well to the other games that have been talked about here.
yeah, I think a lot of stuff too on PC, like and I think we're both used to the consoles, so we're kind of like both in the process. Like I know you're a bit more far along in the migration to full PC. You're a little bit farther along than I am. I think PC's got a lot more of the games, and I know they mentioned it, like, and we'll talk about it in Ubisoft, but like games that kind of have like more of like cult followings than like
Yeah.
where like they've got like like a dedicated group of fans, and like those are the people that are gonna love the game, and everyone else like they don't really care if everyone else loves them because they're really just making it for that core group.
Yeah. And maybe they'll pick up a couple people.
Yeah.
All right, so here's another game that I'm pretty interested. It's called Islands. Um, it's basically like Minecraft with a different texture pack, but it also seemed like there was a lot more stuff to do and maybe like an actual story mode to go through. And you really had like full creativity to just make whatever you could think of. And I really this is another one that I'm, super interested in.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a hard time getting into like games that are like Minecraft and stuff. Like, just they're not my personal flavor. Although it is very different. Like, it's not the same like like blocky texture type thing with Minecraft, but like I don't know. I have a hard time getting into games like this
Yeah,
for
it's
whatever
almost
reason.
it's like Minecraft, but it's not boxy. It's like less boxy, more diamondy. Everything.
It's
That's the
almost
texture.
it's and I know this because it's kind of what we're playing right now, but it's almost like a fun take on like RuneScape a little
Yeah.
bit. I'm
Actually, yeah,
watching a
now that
trailer.
I'm thinking
They're
about
doing like wood cutting and like mining and stuff.
yeah.
Like an interesting take, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I mean,
It kind of
I'm
has
sure as
that
we get
English
closer,
humor to it too, because they just launched a cow.
yeah, and like I think it'll be cool. Maybe like once you get closer, like it's got like they're doing like an Indiana Jones thing, like um, they're sword fighting with armor. um, Once it gets closer to launch and if I can learn more about it, I might be more interested. But I would say
Yeah.
like at first glance, maybe not something I'm gonna go for. But if there's a cool like story or like adventure mode to it, then maybe.
Next is Griffland. It was made by the same people that made the game Don't Starve and Don't Starve Together, and it's the same art style as those, but you're like more of an adult than a child, and there's a lot more combat. Like there's sword fighting and bow and arrows and stuff like that. But it's basically the same game, just with more combat.
Yeah, this is something I don't know anything about this game, so I don't really have much to chip in on this one.
It looks okay. I mean, I'm sure the people that like Don't Starve and Don't Starve Together are going to love it, but I never played those games and I never really saw the point to playing them, so it's not for me. Next is, I believe it's called Lone Echo Arena. It's a for VR people only, but basically you're in like this zero gravity space station kind of thing. Like the multiplayer is like this zero gravity arena, but the actual game is you're at a space station and you have to upkeep the space station, and then obviously something goes wrong and you have to figure out what's going
Classic.
wrong and all that kind of stuff. But um the zero gravity multiplayer is really cool because it's kind of like football where you
What's
jump
the
from
game
one
called?
side. It's like Lone Echo, and then the multiplayer is called Echo Arena.
Okay,
So it's like a
continue.
it's like
Sorry.
a football soccer kind of combo with zero gravity where you just like jump along, you pass it to your teammates, and you try and score on the other end.
Yeah, I feel like I I'm not sold in on the VR stuff yet.
Yeah, neither
So
am
I think
I.
so I think that's why I made a lot of the like the Bethesda stuff and stuff. Like I couldn't really get into that stuff. I'm not ready to jump to VR yet. I feel like that's
Same.
to the point where like it's so it's so demanding from like what you have to get, like not necessarily like, and not only that you have to buy the hardware for it, but like it's so demanding in the sense that like you are completely taken like out of like the element that you're in. You have to be like so dedicated to the game, like like we've all got like pets and so like I can't be like that zoned out of the world. Um, but I mean the game does look cool.
Yeah. It's
Almost got
fun.
kind of like a old like Final Fantasy X, like Blitzball type feel
Yeah.
to it too.
Next on the list, they came out with not came out, but they announced the open beta and the release date for Lawbreakers, and I believe they had a closed beta already for this game, and I think this is the one where they had like they tried to sell it with the pro league that's already up and coming from this game, and it was like no. I mean, I'm guessing that there's a following for Lawbreakers, but it's basically there's no story mode, right? There's no story mode for this.
I know it's supposed to be like a different take on Overwatch.
Yeah.
Like it's like a first person like a first person MOBA, and so yeah. I mean I
I
don't
need to
know
see
like
gameplay to make sure I'm thinking about the correct game. Another ad. I might be thinking of a different one.
yeah. I mean no,
Maybe.
it's for sure Overwatch. It's for sure like an Overwatchy like MOBA type game. Um,
Yeah,
I
okay,
don't
yeah,
know if
this is
there's any
definitely the game
story.
that I
Yeah.
thought. There's no, it's multiplayer only. I think the guy on there was like, it's only 30 fucking dollars, not like any other multiplayer, not $60 like some other, like he was taking a stab at Overwatch because Overwatch was $60.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that may be enough of a reason for someone to want to buy the game and at least try it out. Usually if they like the one thing that I think games like this do have going for them is that if they are lacking in like a certain department, they usually get a good they at least give themselves a chance by keeping the price point lower. But I mean other than that, like if people are sold on Overwatch unless they like all of a sudden become really unhappy with that game, you're probably not going to see like a huge jump to this Lawbreakers game, but
It's
I could be
almost
wrong.
it's almost like a Doom multiplayer, and that's why I don't like it because it's so fast paced. Where Overwatch is more like a fluid, gain momentum kind of game, and that's I don't. It's not good compared to Overwatch. Like they're trying to hype it up to be better than Overwatch, but it's
No.
just not as
You
is not as
In
refined
a
and
game like that,
polished.
you do need the pace to kind of like be slowed down a little bit because there is so much going on, and especially if there's like there is some sort of like objective and stuff at play, like you do need the game to kind of move at a speed that you can actually kind of like, although quickly, like at least kind of process what's happening. And if you got a game that's like that, it ends up turning into like a glorified team deathmatch, basically.
Yeah, and they kind of copied. Well, I guess not copied, but you can get any gun. Like your character, you have different characters that have different abilities and stuff, but there's different guns everywhere on the map, and you can pick them up, and it's kind of really stupid.
Power weapons and map control.
Yeah, and it's like they also everyone is Farah. Everyone can fly. That's another thing that they added to the game where you can
Ooh.
just fly everywhere, and I thought that was like really stupid. Anyways, next thing, Wargroove, which is another game that I thought was pretty intriguing. It's another turn-based combat game, but this is definitely way more 2D, and you can create your own maps and your own encounters and stuff. So it looks pretty cool. You have they were explaining how one of your characters is like your queen, but also your king. So if it dies, the game is over. But it also has, it can move the most and like do the most damage and stuff like that. In comparing it to chess, it looks pretty cool. It's going to be very community based gameplay. Like your new stuff is going to be other people creating different encounters that you have to win. I don't think it's going to be very multiplayer. It could be, I guess, but it's another like strategy. Move your character, 12 spaces here and figure out how you're going to defeat the entire enemy team.
Yeah, I don't know. These games always have like an interesting spin on like I don't know. They always have like an interesting gameplay, but like this is a game where I wouldn't be mad if it didn't have any sort of like actual like multiplayer component or like anything too crazy. Like if it's really just like downloading people's um like instances, because these are kind of fun games where like you want like let someone create something challenging that they know you can really only beat it one way and like try and solve that puzzle basically.
Um, we're gonna keep moving on here because we're 20 minutes short of 3 hours. So, and we still have Ubisoft, Nintendo,
Say,
and Sony to do. Okay.
I just texted you.
Oh, you
If
did?
wanna, yeah. Um. Yeah. I mean, this is
Yeah,
just that time
we
of
can do
year.
that. We'll finish.
Yeah.
So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna finish up PC, and then we're gonna make a part 2 to this episode tomorrow.
Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say. I mean, I mean, I'm down to sit here and talk for another 2.5 hours, but it's only 10 o'clock here. I know it's late for you, so
Yeah.
I figured we'll. Luckily, Ubisoft's kind of a shorter conference.
Yeah, that
It wasn't a
won't.
short.
This one won't be that long.
It wasn't
second
a
part
short conference, but there's just less content there. Sony's gonna take a while. Sony did a lot.
Sharky will be.
Nintendo's
Oh no, Sharky has to work really late, so he won't be here tomorrow either.
uh, say Sony will take a while, and then Nintendo's kind of like in the middle. Like they talked about a lot, but they were vague on some other stuff too. So we'll see.
All right, let's finish up these last 4 games.
Cool. Let's go.
That's how I feel about this game. Just a sigh of relief, and I'm super excited and everything. Age of Empires Definitive Edition, 4K. Age of Empires
Super
remap,
nostalgia.
retexturing, everything like that. It looks so good. I want to sex
Super
it.
nostalgia.
Yeah, that's gonna be great. On the list. Next is
I think if we need to say anything about that game, like
Yeah.
if we have to talk about that game, you probably aren't buying it.
Yeah.
If you played it when you were younger, you're for sure gonna get it.
IR winner. Next game is Hello Neighbor. We've talked about this before. They actually, from the last time, they had like a smaller house. It was just like a 2-story house. They've actually added a shit ton onto the house. Like there's roller coasters on the outsides now.
Yeah, I saw
It
that
was-
in the trailer. I was
The,
like, what?
the
Like,
tower is
what?
just like huge. So they have completely gone off the wall with this game. It's gonna be great. But basically, what Hello Neighbor is you get kicked out of your original house. You have to go back home. And your first day, you move everything in, and then the next day, you see this crazy house that's there, and I think you like default witness your neighbor, do something, or hear something, and it's coming from their basement, and your main goal is to get in their basement, and there's just like so many obstacles to get through, and it's gonna be crazy. This
Yeah,
game is.
and it's one of those games too where you're gonna be on edge the entire time. I know we talked about it. What I think like 2 podcasts ago maybe.
Something like that.
Um, and Sharky was the one playing it, so I know he was talking about it a bit more. But like, you're gonna be on edge like the entire time playing this game because he can pop out of anywhere. To me, still the most intriguing thing is the whole like systemic like learning system of the AI, where like the your neighbor like learns how you like infiltrate the house and like where you get caught and like then like the game like goes back and then like fortifies its defenses for that same plan of attack.
Right, because you don't, when you get caught, you don't die. You go back to your apartment, your house across the street, and I'm pretty sure he was saying like it changes, your house gets changed, and it's like it adds to the mystery of what is going on.
Yeah, like the neighbor like for whatever reason like he doesn't kill you like. One thing I don't know if they had it in the game Sharky was playing or not, but like maybe he like I don't know, it'd be kind of like funny is like if like obviously like there's some secret for the neighbors like, but if you get caught like you don't actually come back as like the same character, like it's a new neighbor that moves in and like I don't know, I just think it'd be funny, but anyway, yeah, this game's gonna be crazy, and I feel like it's going to be one of those games where it's going to be so like satisfyingly disappointing to get really far into the house and then lose,
Yeah.
because
You're definitely going to be
you're gonna
frustrating.
have work. You're gonna have to have worked so hard to get there, and then you're gonna have to figure out a different way to do it the next time, or it might take a few times, but still, you get the point.
Yeah. And they also came out with a launch date for it. I couldn't tell if they said August or October. I know those don't really sound too much the same, but I wasn't really paying attention when I was watching. So it's either August or October 29th.
I'd guess October, only for the reason that that's like prime game time release.
Yeah.
But again, for a game like this, it's a little bit different. Probably a little bit of a lower price point.
Yeah, they probably don't want to
not have
compete.
competition.
Yeah.
But
because the next game that we're going to talk about is Ark, and it finally got a launch date, which is August 8th. So it's fully coming out on August 8th. And this game is just so weird because it's, one of those pre-launch games where you can buy it for a lower price and you can play and play and play, and it's not the completed game. But they came out with a DLC for it before they came out with the actual game. So the actual game is finally coming out. It's going to be perfectly fine-tuned and all that stuff. Everybody that, pre-ordered it gets the full game for free when it comes out. No extra charge or anything like that.
yeah, it's a cool concept for a game. It's just kind of like, just that whole concept of like having a DLC before the game comes out is just kind of weird.
Yeah.
But
our final game here, it's another one that I'm super intrigued. I didn't underline it or anything, but I'm also really intrigued over it because it's like a huge co-op game. It's called Fortnite, where you collect resources, you can do quests, and basically to progress, you make like a fort. Like you can build forts. It's in third person. It's also a shooter, and you make the fort and you want to like protect the fort. I think there's zombies that are the enemies or something like that, or the enemies you protect it from the enemies and stuff like that. And your friends go out and you collect resources, or maybe you like kill enemies and stuff like that, and then you come back and maybe you have like a builder who uses the resources to build different I don't know, things that make weapons, things that power your fort and everything like that. And the really cool thing is that everything can be broken down for resources. So like if you have a random highway that's sitting next to your fort, you can literally go up and pound away on the road and take the road away. Or you can have cars sitting on the road that are abandoned, and you can pound away on the cars and collect them as resources. So it's really intriguing, and I think it's another co-op game that's definitely worth some time in putting into, like Sea of Thieves, but it's obviously not the same as Sea of Thieves. But it's something you could have fun with your friends for sure.
Yeah, and I like the one thing I'm watching a little video on it right now is like they are showing like you can like kind of like build the world as you go, but it's cool like how they actually build it, where like when you're like building your fortress, like you may build a brick wall and like it'll be there, so it doesn't necessarily slow down like your actual like build time. Like if you want to build it quickly, you can. But like they show this brick wall and like it doesn't just like you don't like press A and then like the bricks all like the wall's just there. Like it comes in like the bricks literally fall in like piece by piece.
Yeah.
And it builds the wall.
Definitely
and
some
that's
cool
like how
animations.
they build the structures in that game. Yeah. It looks graphically really cool. Yeah, there's some sort of like monsters that are trying to take your resources, it looks like. So yeah, this looks like it could be a really fun game.
Yeah. But that concludes today's episode, part 1. We will be back tomorrow around the same time for part 2. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna add Return of Batman. Well, I'll talk to him and see if he wants to.
Ooh, yeah, see if he wants to
be part of the group, because he can special guest. Because I love talking with you, but it's cool to have that third opinion and everything like that. So yeah, I'll talk to him and we'll see. He might not be into it, podcasting can make some people nervous or whatever. Being recorded can make some people nervous, but who knows? So yeah, we'll see you tomorrow.
Crisco out.
Beautiful.